All right, here we are again, continuing with our Module 2 math notes, starting by putting our name and number at the top. Again, Module 2, although we are coming to the end of Module 2, not that much left. Just a little bit more division, specifically with decimals, so that'll be exciting. Although, aside from moving a decimal straight up, there's not much else we're going to do with it today. So, it's the second time I've tried to write out lesson. I don't know why I keep trying to do that. A simple 2-24 will do the job. Module 2, lesson 24, we are dividing a decimal. Now specifically, we're going to be dividing a decimal by a whole number. What that means is your dividend will be a decimal, but your divisor, the number of groups you're breaking it into, will be a whole number. Once we change our divisor into a decimal, things will change a little bit, but for right now, we don't have to stress about that. Okay, lesson 24 means 10, 20, and then one less than 5, so 24. I've said before, I will say again, you can kind of see why we stopped using Roman numerals. Okay. These numerals are quite a bit simpler. Okay, just like lesson 23, we are diving right into the procedure. I'll use the terms dividend and divisor pretty frequently, but we're not going to define them on this particular lesson since we've done that previously. We're also going to need the space on the paper. Okay, for step one, write the problem vertically. Now, with some of the other lessons, we've talked about using estimation first to get yourself started. I don't usually recommend that when we're first starting out with decimals. Part of it is because you're rounding to the nearest whole number. Part of it is because then you have to round to a compatible. It's an even bigger headache than the other stuff. So for right now, step one when you're working with a decimal is just to get it set up vertically. So we've got 52 and 8/10 divided by 3. 52 and 8/10 divided by 3. Now I know I said I wouldn't define any vocabulary, but we're at least again going to use it. Your dividend is this first number right here, and it is what will go inside the division hut. It's what goes inside the symbol. Your second number, your whole number in this case, is the divisor. Okay. We set the problem up vertically by drawing the division hut, drawing the little symbol. Again, dividend goes inside. Dividend goes inside. That first number goes on the inside. Your divisor goes outside. Okay. For step 2, and this is another one of those times where I'll say, when you're eventually working on graph paper, makes it a lot easier to do this step. You are going to write a decimal point. You are going to write a decimal point in the quotient. Now, if you take a look up here, we already have one in the dividend, but the quotient is this area up top where the answer goes. This is where our answer will be. Write a decimal point in the quotient directly above. And this is so important, I am even going to use my straight edge to make sure it is properly underlined. Please make sure that you write a decimal point directly above the decimal point that's in the dividend. So directly above the decimal point, in the dividend. Kind of running out of room there. Dividend. Okay. To show you what I mean, I'm going to copy this down. I'm going to copy this down again real quickly. 52 and 8/10 divided by 3. I am going to immediately carry the decimal point straight up. I don't get rid of this one, although I am going to kind of ignore it for a while now. But I need to put this one here to make sure that everything's in the right spot. With your graph paper, if you have a digit in each box, the decimal point should usually be just on a line. So just on the same line straight above. Now some of you are thinking, oh man, I don't have to do that right away. I can do that at the end. Yeah, no. Do it. Do it. Do it. On occasion in class, you will see me forget. You may raise your hand politely to remind me because it is that important. I was not taught to do this, at least not that I remember. I shouldn't go blaming my 5th grade teacher. Maybe she did tell me and I just didn't remember. You guys will be better than that. You will remember to do it, ladies and gentlemen. You will remember to carry that decimal point up immediately. I've spent forever going on about that. So hopefully that emphasizes to you the importance I place upon it. Step 3. There we go. Step 3. Begin at the left and divide normally. Begin at the left and divide normally, comma, keeping all places lined up. This is another one that's super important. Apparently not important enough for the straight edge, but you know what I mean. We're going to line things up very carefully and keep them lined up. Use that graph paper. Now for this particular example, obviously we don't have graph paper. I will write it straight down. I will do my best to keep everything lined up on the line paper. If you would like, you can actually turn your notes at this point and use the blue lines to help keep you lined up. I am not going to do that this time, but I know some of you have done that in class, and if it's a helpful strategy for you, you can do that. Okay, should work about the same. Now, start with my division hut. My dividend is 3 digits, so 5, 2, 8, tens place, ones place, tenths place. I am dividing by 3. 3 is my divisor. Step 2 says that I must carry my decimal point straight up, so I am going to remember to do that. And from there, like it says, we proceed as normal, the same way we did it with the last few lessons. Now, I start by looking at just this column, 5 divided by 3. Well, 5 is bigger than 3. 3 will go into 5, so I don't have to put a 0 here. I can actually put the number of times it'll go in. 3 times 1 is 3. 3 times 2 is 6. That's too big. So it'll only go in one time. 1 times 3 is 3. 5 minus 3 is 2. All right. Slide over. Drop down. 3 will go into 22. This is where I start thinking multiples. This is where I start thinking compatible numbers. 3 times 1 is 3. 3 times 2 is 6. 3 times 3 is 9. 3 times 4 is 12. 3 times 5 is 15. Getting closer. 3 times 6 is 18. 3 times 7 is 21. 3 times 8 is 24. Too far. Back up. 3 times 7. 7 times 3 is 21. Subtract that out. No problem. Now, ignore the decimal point. We carried it up into the quotient, so it should be where it needs to be if I'm keeping things lined up, if I'm using my columns. I don't have to do anything with it down here. What I will do is bring this 8 down. 3 will go into 18. Well, if I know my fact families, if I've been practicing my 3 facts, I know that 3 times 6 is 18. So 6 times 3, 6 groups of 3, is 18. How nice. 18 minus 18 is 0. Okay. Now, while you're working on these problems, a couple notes. Well, I guess a couple tips. It's all notes, huh? Use estimation. Okay, that's what I used. And or. So maybe you use both, maybe you use just one of them. Use estimation and or guess and check. Let me slide my paper over. Guess and check is where I take 3 and I just multiply it by random numbers. 3 times 5, 3 times 6, 3 times 7, until I get something close to the number in my quotient. To the number in my dividend. Sorry, folks. So for example, on guess and check, if I'm not sure how many times 3 would go into 22, I just multiply 3 times 5 is 15. Okay, too small. 3 times 6 is 12. Wait, 18. Wow. We'll pretend I did that one on purpose to test you. Those of you yelling at me right now, you passed. Let's try again. 3 times 5 is 15. 3 times 6 is 18. 3 times 7 is 21. I'm guessing and checking. I'm guessing 3 times 7, 3 times 6, 3 times 5, 3 times whatever, and seeing if it'll work. So you can see how I used kind of a combination of the two. Use estimation and or guess and check to fill in your quotient. Use estimation and or guess and check to fill in your quotient. As I mentioned earlier, ignore the decimal. Ignore the decimal for now. Obviously, that decimal is there for a reason. It's important, but for now, you can go ahead and ignore it. I've brought everything down. I have nothing else to bring. I don't even have anything left down here. Because we're dealing with decimals, no more remainders. We practiced with remainders a little bit to kind of get ourselves back in the division groove, but once we have a decimal point, we start using decimal points. We don't mix that with remainders. You cannot have a remainder also. So you need to go until you get 0 at the bottom, or until you've gone out 1, 2, 3 places out to the thousandths, then you need to stop. All right, finally, the last step is usually, hopefully, the easiest, so please don't skip it. Step 4, record your answer. Step 4, let me slide that up. Step 4 is record your answer. And again, no remainder anymore, not with a decimal. If you have a decimal in your answer, you cannot have a remainder as well. So the original problem was 52 and 8/10 divided by 3, and our answer is 17 and 6/10. We can check that very quickly. 17.6 times 3. I'm multiplying my quotient times my divisor. If I multiply quotient times divisor, I should get the original dividend. I should get that original number. 3 times 6 is 18. Carry the 1. 3 times 7 is 21, plus 1 more is 22. Carry the 2. 3 plus 1 is 3, 4, 5. All right, digits look good. 1 place value behind the decimal, 1 decimal place, means I need 1 decimal place here as well. So, as I am checking, looks pretty good. So again, remember, you can check with multiplication. Admittedly, as the numbers start getting bigger, you are probably not going to do that. But, at least for this one where it's a single digit, it's not a bad idea. Especially on your test. All right. No examples to work on at home tonight. If you want to come up with your own, just try to come up with a decimal like this, something, something, point, something, and then divide it by a whole number. Now again, division's tricky, so it may not work out evenly. Don't go out any further than the thousandths place. Your best bet's probably just to wait until you get back to class. We will practice plenty. That's a lot of alliteration. We will practice plenty in class. All right. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. That'll do for now. I will see you soon.